The glass door exploded inward as the woman crashed through it, blood trailing from her temple, designer heels abandoned somewhere in her desperate flight. Mike Reynolds barely had time to drop his wrench before she collapsed against him, her manicured fingers clutching his oil-stained coveralls like a lifeline. "Please," she gasped, terror making her voice raw. "They're going to kill me." Outside, black SUVs screeched into his gas station, and Mike made a split-second decision that would transform his simple life into something extraordinary. Mike Reynolds had exactly $17 in his wallet, a 9-year-old daughter asleep at home, and 3 hours left on his shift when everything changed. The Texaco station squatted on the edge of Denver like a forgotten relic, its neon sign flickering between open and darkness. Mike wiped his hands on the same rag he'd been using all week, the oil and grease, now permanent residence in the fabric. The clock on the wall, the one that had been 5 minutes fast since he'd started working here 2 years ago, showed 11:47 p.m. He was under the hood of Mrs. Chen's ancient Corolla, the after-hours repair job that would put an extra 50 in his pocket. 50 that would go straight to Lily's school lunch account, which had been running on empty for 3 days now. His daughter had been packing peanut butter sandwiches without complaint, but Mike knew. A father always knows. The wrench slipped, skinning his knuckle against the engine block. Damn it. He sucked on the wound, tasting copper and motor oil. 3 more hours, then home to catch 4 hours of sleep before Lily needed to get up for school. Then his day job at Rodriguez Auto, where he worked on high-performance engine tuning when they let him, in basic oil changes when they didn't. Then back here for another night shift. The cycle that kept them barely afloat. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patterson next door. "Lily's asleep. Don't worry about waking us when you get home." God bless that woman. Without her, he'd never be able to work these doubles. He typed back a quick thanks, his greasy thumb leaving smudges on the screen. The November wind cut through the garage bay, carrying the smell of snow that would arrive before morning. Mike pulled his threadbare jacket tighter. The heating system had died last Tuesday. Jerry, the station owner, said he'd fix it when he'd fix it, which meant never. Mike was calculating if he could squeeze out another week from their grocery budget when he heard it. Footsteps, running fast, not the casual jog of someone out for exercise. This was the sound of prey. He straightened from the engine wrench, still in hand, and moved toward the garage entrance. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied now by labored breathing. Then he saw her. She burst into view like something from another world. Designer dress torn at the shoulder. No shoes, blonde hair that had probably been perfect hours ago now wild around her face. But it was her eyes that made Mike move. Pure terror, the kind he'd only seen once before in his wife's eyes the day the doctor said terminal. The woman saw him and changed direction, heading straight for the station. Behind her, maybe 30 seconds back, came the sound of engines. Big ones, multiple vehicles. "Please." She crashed through the door, actually crashed shoulder first, the bell above it jangling madly. "Please, you have to help me." She stumbled and Mike caught her before she hit the oil-stained concrete. Up close, he could see the bruise forming on her cheekbone, the small cut on her lip. Someone had hit her. Recently. "Miss what?" "They're coming." She gripped his coveralls, her hands shaking so hard he could feel it through the thick fabric. "They're going to kill me. Please, I know how this looks. But I'm not crazy, I'm not on drugs. They're really going to—" The sound of engines became thunder. Through the window, Mike saw them. 2 black SUVs, the kind with tinted windows that you saw in movies about government conspiracies. They were moving fast, too fast for the narrow street, and they were definitely coming here. Mike had about 5 seconds to decide. He looked at the woman, really looked at her. Beneath the terror and dishevelment, she had the kind of face you saw in business magazines. High cheekbones, intelligent eyes, bone structure that whispered money and good breeding. Her dress, even torn, probably cost more than he made in a month. The watch on her wrist definitely did. None of that mattered. What mattered was that she was terrified and she was asking for help. And Mike Reynolds had been raised by a father who taught him that you don't turn away from someone in need. "Back room," he said, pulling her toward the station's small office. "Now." She didn't question, just followed. Mike shoved her through the door into the cramped space that served as Jerry's office, though Jerry hadn't been there in 6 months. "Get under the desk. Don't move. Don't make a sound." She folded herself into the space, and Mike grabbed a pile of old invoices from the filing cabinet, scattered them over the desk, made it look like someone had been working. Then he stepped back into the main garage just as the SUV screamed into the lot. Mike picked up his wrench and bent back over Mrs. Chen's engine. His heart was hammering so hard he was sure they'd hear it over the engine noise, but his hands were steady. 20 years of working on cars had taught him that. 3 men got out. Mike watched them in his peripheral vision, keeping his head down. They moved like professionals, smooth, coordinated, purposeful. The one in front was tall, built like someone who spent serious time in the gym. The other 2 flanked him, their eyes scanning the area. Mike kept working, letting them come to him. "Hey!" The tall one's voice was flat, emotionless. Mike straightened slowly, wiping his hands on his rag like he had all the time in the world. "You seen a woman come through here, blonde, about 5'7", wearing a blue dress." The man's eyes were cold, calculating. "Would have been in the last few minutes." Mike shrugged. "Been under this hood for the past hour. Haven't seen anyone." The tall man stared at him for a long moment. Mike met his gaze, keeping his expression bored, maybe a little annoyed at the interruption. Inside, his pulse raced. "Mind if we look around?" It wasn't really a question. "Knock yourself out. Just don't touch anything. Insurance doesn't cover customer stupidity." One of the other men laughed, but it was cut short by a look from the tall one. They spread out, checking the bathroom, looking behind the counter. Mike kept working, forcing himself to maintain an easy rhythm. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Simple movements to keep his hands busy and his mind focused. The tall man moved toward the office door. "That's locked," Mike called out without looking up. "Owner's private office. He finds out I let anyone in there, I'm fired." "You got a key." "Wouldn't matter if I did. Man's got cameras in there. Paranoid about employee theft." Mike glanced over, let a small smile play at his lips. "Though between you and me, there's nothing in there worth stealing unless you're into 5-year-old tax returns and vintage porn magazines." The tall man's hand was on the doorknob. One turn and he'd know Mike was lying. There were no cameras. Jerry was too cheap for cameras. "Blake, we got something." The voice came from outside. The tall man, Blake, turned away from the door and strode back out. Mike followed, trying to look curious rather than terrified. One of the men was holding a high-heeled shoe. Designer probably cost more than Mike made in a week. It was lying by the dumpster like it had been dropped by someone running past. "She went that way," the man said, pointing down the alley that ran behind the station. Blake studied the shoe, then looked back at Mike. "You sure you didn't see anything?" "Like I said, been working." Mike crossed his arms. "Look, I don't know what your deal is, but I've got work to do. This car needs to be done by morning or I don't get paid. So unless you're planning to cover my lost wages." Blake reached into his jacket, and for a heart-stopping moment, Mike thought he was going for a gun. Instead, he pulled out a business card. "You see her, you call this number. There's a reward." Mike took the card without looking at it. How much of a reward? Enough to matter. They got back in their SUVs and peeled out, heading down the alley. Mike stood there watching their taillights disappear, counting to 100 in his head. Then another 100 just to be sure. When he finally went back to the office, the woman was still under the desk, curled into a ball so tight it looked painful. She was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "They're gone," Mike said softly. She didn't move. "Miss, it's okay." They left. Slowly, like she was afraid it was a trick, she uncurled herself and crawled out. Her dress was now torn in 2 places, and her stockings were shredded from her run. She stood on shaking legs, using the desk for support. "Thank you." The words came out as a whisper. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You want to tell me what that was about?" She shook her head, then seemed to catch herself. I, I can't. The less you know, the safer you are." "Lady, 3 guys who look like they eat steroids for breakfast just came looking for you. That ship has sailed." She almost smiled at that. Almost. "You're right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have come here, but I didn't know where else to go, and I saw your light and I just..." "Hey." Mike held up his hands. "It's okay, but those guys are gonna figure out pretty quick that you didn't go down that alley. They'll be back." The color drained from her face. "You're right. I need to go. I need to..." She looked around wildly, like she was just realizing she had nowhere to go. "My phone. They took my phone, my purse, everything." You got someone you can call family, friends. She laughed, but it was bitter. The kind of friends I have would sell me out for a stock tip. And my family thinks I'm in Chicago for a conference. Mike studied her. The dress, the watch, the perfect manicure that was now chipped and broken. The way she held herself, even terrified, straight, spine chin up. This was someone used to being in charge. What's your name? She hesitated. Sarah. Sarah Winters. I'm Mike. Mike Reynolds. He made a decision he'd probably regret. Look, my truck's out back. Let me close up here, and I'll take you somewhere safe. I couldn't. Yeah, you could. And you're going to because those guys will definitely be back, and next time, they won't take no for an answer. She stared at him. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. Mike thought about Lily asleep in her bed, trusting that her father would always keep her safe. He thought about his wife, how she'd made him promise to keep being the good man she'd married even after she was gone. Because it's the right thing to do. He went to the register, pulled out the $40 in cash that was supposed to be tomorrow's deposit, and stuffed it in his pocket. Jerry would be pissed, but Jerry could deal with it. Then he grabbed his jacket from the hook and tossed it to Sarah. Put this on. It's cold out there. The jacket swallowed her, hanging past her hips, the sleeves covering her hands. She looked like a kid playing dress-up, if not for the fear still etched on her face. Mike led her out the back past the dumpster where the man had found her shoe. His truck sat there, a 1995 Ford F-150 with more rust than paint, held together by prayer and duct tape. He'd been meaning to fix it up, but that required money he didn't have. This is yours. She tried to keep the surprise out of her voice and failed. She's not pretty, but she runs. Mike opened the passenger door. The hinges screamed in protest. Watch the spring poking through the seat. Sarah climbed in, careful of the exposed spring. Mike got in the driver's side and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then caught. The heater immediately started blowing cold air. Takes a few minutes to warm up, he said apologetically. It's fine, it's perfect. She was looking out the back window, watching for SUVs. Mike pulled out onto the street, heading in the opposite direction from where the men had gone. He knew these streets had grown up on them. He took a circuitous route, doubling back twice, cutting through an alley so narrow the mirrors almost scraped the walls. You've done this before, Sarah observed. Let's just say I know my way around. He glanced at her. So what's the plan? Where am I taking you? She seemed to deflate. I don't know. I can't go home. They know where I live. I can't go to the office. That's probably where they grabbed me from. I can't go to the police because she was quiet for so long he thought she wasn't going to answer. Then because the people after me have connections, money, power, the kind that makes problems disappear. And you have those things. I thought I did. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Turns out I was wrong. They drove in silence for a while, the truck's engine rumbling through the empty streets. Mike was trying to figure out what to do. He couldn't take her to his apartment. Lily was there. He couldn't leave her at a hotel with no money, no ID. He couldn't. There's a motel, he said suddenly. The Riverside. It's not fancy, but the owner's a friend. He'll let us pay later. Us. You think I'm leaving you alone tonight? Those guys meant business. You need someone watching your back until you figure out your next move. She turned to look at him fully for the first time. In the dim light from the dashboard, he could see her eyes were green, bright green, like spring grass. I don't even know your last name. Reynolds, Mike Reynolds. Sarah Winters. She held out her hand, formal, despite everything. Her handshake was firm. And Mike, thank you, I mean it. Most people aren't me. The Riverside Motel was exactly what it sounded like, a relic from the 1960s that had seen better decades. All of them. But Tom, the night manager, was an old friend from high school who owed Mike more favors than either of them could count. Tom's face lit up when they walked in, then immediately shifted to concern when he saw Sarah. Everything okay? Need a room, Tom, quiet one, around back if you've got it. Tom's eyes flicked between them, taking in Sarah's torn dress barely hidden by Mike's jacket, the bruise on her face. Trouble. The kind we don't talk about. Tom nodded slowly, then reached for a key. Not a key card, the Riverside was too old for that, an actual key attached to a plastic tag with the number worn almost off. Room 12, far corner. Can't see it from the road. He slid the key across the counter. I'm assuming you'll square up later. Soon as I can. Don't worry about it. Tom's voice was gentle. You need anything else, you call? I'm here all night. The room was small, dated, but clean. 2 beds with quilted covers that had probably been there since the motel opened. A TV that might pick up local channels if you held the antenna just right. A bathroom with fixtures that belonged in a museum. Sarah sat on one of the beds looking lost. I'll go get some supplies, Mike said. Food, water, first aid kit for that cut. You'll be safe here. Tom's good people and those guys have no reason to look here. You're leaving. The fear in her voice made him stop. Just for 20 minutes. There's a 24-hour Walgreens 2 blocks away. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. Mike's jacket made her look even smaller. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. I'll knock 3 times, pause, then twice more. Okay. Okay. At Walgreens, Mike bought what he could with his $40. Bandages, antiseptic bottled water, granola bars, a prepaid phone. The teenager at the counter didn't even look up from his own phone. Mike paid in cash and headed back. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 more. Sarah opened the door, immediately, a relief flooding her face. She'd been crying again. He could tell from the fresh tear tracks. Thought you might not come back, she admitted. Said I would, didn't I? He cleaned the cut on her face while she sat still as a statue. This close, he could smell her perfume, something expensive and subtle. It seemed out of place in the shabby motel room, like finding a diamond in a coal mine. You have medical training, she asked. Daughter plays soccer. I've cleaned my share of scrapes. You have a daughter, Lily. She's 9. Her mother passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He finished with the bandage, step back. That should hold. You might want to get it looked at properly tomorrow. Tomorrow. She said it like it was a foreign concept. I don't even know what tomorrow looks like. Let's start with tonight. Get some rest. Things will be clearer in the morning. You're staying, Mike gestured to the other bed. If that's okay. Like I said, I don't think you should be alone tonight. She nodded, relief evident. More than okay. Mike sat on the other bed, pulled out his phone. I need to text my neighbor. Let her know I might not make it home tonight. He sent a quick message to Mrs. Patterson saying he had an emergency and asking if Lily could stay with her in the morning. The response was immediate. Of course, everything okay? He typed back, will explain later, thank you. When he looked up, Sarah was watching him. Your daughter. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Tell me about her. So he did. He talked about Lily's obsession with dinosaurs, how she could name every period of the Mesozoic era, how she'd insisted on dressing as a paleontologist for Halloween, complete with khaki vest and fake fossil brushes, how she still left a place at the dinner table for her mother, just in case angels got hungry. Sarah listened, and gradually the tension in her shoulders eased. When he finished, she was almost smiling. She sounds amazing. She is. She's everything good in this world. He paused. What about you, family, parents in San Francisco? They wanted me to be a doctor. I became a CEO instead. They're still disappointed. She pulled her knees up to her chest. No kids, no husband. My company is my family. Was my family. Was... She was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Mike, what do you do for work? I mean, I know you're a mechanic, but work at Rodriguez Auto during the day, the gas station at night. 2 jobs, 3 if you count the side work. He shrugged. Rent's not cheap, even in the bad part of town. And Lily, kids are expensive, but we make it work. That must be hard. Mike shrugged. It's life. You do what you have to do. I ran a company, Winters Technologies. Have you heard of it? Mike almost laughed. Lady Winters Technologies owns half the tech patents in Colorado. Everyone's heard of it. I built it from nothing, started in my garage with an idea and too much caffeine. 15 years later, we're worth $2 billion. She laughed bitterly. And someone wants me dead because of it. Who? My CFO, Bradley Nash. You met him tonight, the tall one. Mike's blood ran cold. Your CFO is trying to kill you. He's been embezzling. Millions, maybe tens of millions. I found out 3 days ago. I was supposed to be in Chicago, but my meeting got canceled. I came back early, went to the office to catch up on work, found some discrepancies in the accounts. Started digging. The more I dug, the more I found. Why not go to the police? With what proof? Bradley's been at this for years. He's covered his tracks and he has connections everywhere. Judges, prosecutors, police commissioners. He's bought them all. So he decided to remove the problem. Make it look like an accident. CEO under stress, working too hard, tragic car crash, or suicide. He'd have a story ready. Mike felt anger building in his chest. Over money. $50 million by my count, maybe more. Mike whistled low. That's a lot of money. Enough to kill four, apparently. She unfolded herself, stretching out on the bed. I'm sorry. I'm dumping all this on you, and you don't even know me. I know enough. You know I'm trouble. I know you're scared and alone and need help. That's enough for me. She studied him in the dim light from the bedside lamp. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know, but not this, not kindness without an agenda. In my world, everyone wants something. Maybe you've been in the wrong world. She was quiet for a moment then. Maybe I have. Mike's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He opened it and his blood ran cold. Mr. Reynolds, you lied to us tonight. That was unwise. We know she was there. We know you helped her. You have one chance to make this right. Call this number. Tell us where she is, and we'll forget this happened. You have until sunrise. After that, we'll have to visit your daughter. Lovely girl, Lily. Be ashamed if something happened to her. His hands started shaking. Mike, Sarah sat up. What is it? He showed her the phone. The color drained from her face. Oh God, they know about Lily. Mike, I'm so sorry. I never meant. Stop. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. I brought this to your door. Your daughter. My daughter is going to be fine. He stood pacing the small room. Because we're going to handle this. How Bradley has resources we can't match. He has money connections. He has fear. That's all he has. Fear and greed. Mike stopped pacing, turned to face her. You said you built a $2 billion company from nothing. Yes, but then you're a fighter, and right now we need to fight. With what I have, nothing. No phone, no money, no access to my accounts. You have me. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah stared at him, and something shifted in her expression. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something else. Determination, maybe. Or hope. Why, she asked. Why would you risk everything for a stranger? Mike thought about it, really thought about it. The smart thing would be to call the number, tell them where she was, go home to his daughter. The smart thing would be to protect his own. But Mike had never been particularly smart. What he'd always been, was someone who stood up when standing up was required. Because my daughter is watching, he said finally. Even when she's not there, she's watching through my actions, my choices. What kind of man would I be if I taught her to turn away when someone needs help? What kind of father would I be if I showed her that fear wins? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She really is lucky to have you. We're going to get through this, Mike said. But we need a plan and we need to move. They know about this place now. They've probably already tracked my phone. As if on cue, the sound of engines filled the night. Mike moved to the window, peered through the curtain. 2 black SUVs pulling into the motel parking lot. They're here. Mike grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her toward the bathroom. Window, now. The bathroom window was small, painted shut, probably decades ago. Mike grabbed a towel, wrapped it around his fist, and punched through the glass. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the quiet night. Can you fit? Sarah was already hiking up her torn dress. I'll fit. Mike boosted her up, and she wiggled through, dropping to the ground outside with a soft grunt. Mike followed, barely squeezing his broader shoulders through the frame. Glass cut through his shirt, drawing blood, but he didn't have time to care. They ran. Behind the motel was a drainage ditch, concrete walls slick with algae. Mike dropped down first, then caught Sarah as she jumped. Her bare feet splashed in the shallow water, running along the bottom. This way. They moved through the ditch, staying low. Mike knew these backways from his teenage years when running from cops was just another Friday night. The ditch connected to a storm drain that ran under the highway. If they could make it there, shouts behind them, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. "They're coming," Sarah gasped. "Keep moving." The storm drain loomed ahead, a black mouth in the concrete. Mike didn't hesitate, plunging into the darkness. The water was deeper here, knee-high and freezing. Sarah followed her breathing, echoing off the curved walls. They waded through absolute blackness, guided only by touch and the sound of water. Mike kept one hand on the wall, the other reaching back occasionally to make sure Sarah was still there. Her fingers would grip his, cold and trembling, then let go. After what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, they emerged on the other side of the highway. Mike helped Sarah climb out, both of them soaked and shivering. They were in an industrial area, warehouses and chain-link fences as far as they could see. "My truck," Mike said through chattering teeth. "They'll be watching it. We need somewhere to go." Sarah was hugging herself, trying to generate warmth. Mike pulled out his phone, then immediately turned it off. They could track it. But without it, he had no way to check on Lily, no way to call for help. "There's a place," he said finally. "Friend of mine owns a garage about a mile from here. He lets me use it sometimes for side work. There's an office with a couch." They walked through the empty streets, Sarah barefoot and limping. Mike gave her his socks, which were better than nothing. Every car that passed made them tense, ready to run or hide. The garage was tucked between a Chinese restaurant and a pawn shop, both closed for the night. Mike found the hidden key, a magnetic box under the dumpster, and let them in through the back. Inside, it smelled of motor oil and rubber, familiar and comforting to Mike. He found the office really just a glorified closet with a desk and an ancient couch that had seen better decades. "It's not much. It's perfect." Sarah collapsed on the couch, pulling her legs up. "It's warm and dry, and they don't know about it. That makes it perfect." Mike found some coveralls hanging on a hook, tossed them to her. "These will be big, but they're clean." While she changed in the bathroom, Mike tried to think. Bradley and his men knew who he was, where he worked, where he lived. They knew about Lily. That was the part that made his hands clench into fists. Threatening him was one thing. Threatening his daughter. "Mike." Sarah stood in the doorway wearing the coveralls, which made her look like a kid playing dress-up. She'd washed her face, revealing the full extent of the bruising. Her left eye was swelling shut. "We need to get you to a hospital." "No hospitals. They'll be watching." She was right. Bradley would have men at every emergency room in the city by now. "Then we need ice at least." He found an old lunch cooler in the break room freezer, wrapped it in paper towels. "Here." She held it against her eye, wincing. "What are we going to do?" "First, we need to get Lily somewhere safe." "I have a place." Mike looked at her skeptically. "Not mine," she clarified. "A cabin in the mountains. It belongs to the company, but it's off the books. We use it for sensitive meetings. Bradley doesn't know about it." "You're sure?" "I'm sure they know. I set it up myself, separate from all other company assets. Different name, different accounts. It was my insurance policy." "Against what?" "Against this." She gestured vaguely at their situation. "I always knew having that much money made me a target. I just thought the threat would come from outside, not from within." "How far?" 2 hours, maybe 3. "Near Estes Park." Mike calculated. They'd need a car, gas supplies, and they'd need to get Lily without Bradley's men seeing them. "I know what you're thinking," Sarah said. "It's too dangerous. We should just nothing. We're going to get my daughter, and we're going to your cabin, and we're going to figure this out." He stood. "But first we need a car." "Steal one. Borrow one." Mike pulled out a set of keys from the desk drawer. "Owner's got a beater he keeps for parts. It run barely, but it'll get us there." The car was a 1988 Honda Civic that looked like it had lost a fight with a baseball bat. Multiple fights. But when Mike turned the key, it started on the first try. "Small miracles," he muttered. They drove through the pre-dawn darkness, taking back roads and residential streets. Mike's apartment building looked quiet. No suspicious vehicles in sight. But that didn't mean anything. They could be watching from anywhere. "Stay here," he told Sarah. "Engine running. Anything happens, you drive." You run a $2 billion company. You can drive a stolen Honda." He slipped out before she could argue. Mike knew every entrance and exit to his building, including the ones management didn't know about. He went through the basement, up the old service elevator that supposedly didn't work anymore. His apartment door was untouched. No signs of forced entry. He grabbed a backpack, throwing in clothes for him and Lily, her favorite stuffed dinosaur, and the emergency cash he kept hidden in a coffee can, all 80s of it. Then he went to Mrs. Patterson's door, knocked softly. She answered immediately like she'd been waiting. "Mike, what's going on?" "I need to take Lily now." Something in his face must have told her not to argue. She disappeared, returning with a sleepy Lily wrapped in a blanket. "Daddy," Lily rubbed her eyes. "Is it morning?" "Not yet, baby. We're going on an adventure." "A dinosaur adventure." "Something like that." Mrs. Patterson gripped his arm. "Mike, if you're in trouble, just need to lay low for a bit. I'll call when I can." She nodded, worry creasing her face. "You take care of that little girl." "Always." He carried Lily down the back stairs, her arms around his neck, still mostly asleep. She barely stirred when he put her in the back seat of the Honda, just curled up with her blanket and dinosaur. Sarah looked back at her, something soft crossing her face. "She's beautiful." "Yeah." They drove in silence as the sky began to lighten, painting the mountains in shades of purple and gold. Lily woke up as they left the city, sitting up with the sudden alertness children possess. "Daddy, where are we going?" "To a cabin in the mountains." "Whose cabin?" "My friend's." He gestured to Sarah. "This is Sarah." Lily studied Sarah with the unfiltered curiosity of a 9-year-old. "What happened to your face?" "Lily," Mike started. "I fell," Sarah said simply. "It was silly of me." "My dad says you should always watch where you're going. Your dad is very smart." Lily seemed to accept this. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Mike nearly drove off the road. "Lily, what?" "Tommy's dad has a girlfriend. She brings him donuts." "She's just a friend who needs help," Mike said firmly. "Oh." Lily sounded disappointed, then brightening. "Do you like dinosaurs?" I don't know much about them," Sarah admitted. Lily's eyes lit up. For the next hour, she gave Sarah a comprehensive education on dinosaurs, covering everything from the Triassic period to why velociraptors were misrepresented in movies. Sarah listened with what seemed like genuine interest, asking questions that made Lily beam. "You're really smart," Sarah told her. "Daddy says I get it from my mom." Lily's voice went quiet. "She was really smart, too." "I bet she was." They stopped once for gas, Mike paying cash while keeping his baseball cap pulled low. The attendant barely looked at him. Sarah stayed in the car with Lily, teaching her a clapping game she remembered from her own childhood. The cabin appeared just as the sun reached its zenith, tucked into a grove of aspens whose leaves shimmered gold in the light. It was bigger than Mike had expected, all glass and natural wood modern, but somehow fitting perfectly into the landscape. "This is your secret cabin?" Mike asked. "The company's secret cabin." "Well, mine, really. I'm the only one with the access codes." She punched numbers into a hidden keypad and the door clicked open. Inside was all clean lines and expensive furniture. A kitchen that looked like it had never been used. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the mountains. "Wow," Lily breathed. "It's like a fancy hotel." There are 3 bedrooms upstairs. Full pantry, satellite phone that can't be traced, and she opened a panel in the wall revealing a safe. Emergency supplies. She pulled out cash, lots of it, multiple phones, and what looked like passports. Mike stared. "You really did plan for this." "I'm paranoid. Or I was. Turns out not paranoid enough." Lily had discovered the TV, which was roughly the size of Mike's entire living room wall. "Daddy, can I watch cartoons?" "Sure, baby." While Lily settled in with some animated show about rescue dogs, Mike and Sarah sat at the kitchen island. "Now what?" Mike asked. "Now I figure out how to prove what Bradley's have been doing. I need to access my company's servers, but remotely without him knowing." "You can do that." "I built most of our systems. I left myself back doors he doesn't know about." She pulled out one of the phones from the safe. "But first I need to make sure you and Lily are protected." "We're fine." "No, you're not. Bradley won't stop. He can't afford to. You've seen his face. You know what he's doing. You're witnesses." The weight of that settled on Mike's shoulders. "So what do you suggest?" "Let me pay you $100,000 thousand cash right now. Take Lily and disappear for a while. Take a vacation. Hell, take a year. By then I'll have dealt with Bradley." Mike stared at the stack of cash she'd pulled from the safe. More money than he'd see in 2 years of working multiple jobs. enough to give Lily everything she needed, everything she deserved. $100,000. 10 times what they needed to fix the apartment. 20 times what they needed for Lily's college fund to get started. A buffer security peace of mind. The thought lingered, tempting practical. With that money, he could give Lily the life she deserved. No more rationing lunch money, no more patching clothes, no more nights wondering how to stretch the groceries another week. But then Mike thought about what it would mean to take that money and run. What lesson would Lily learn? That when things got tough, her father took the easy way out. That money solved problems better than courage. No, Sarah blinked. No, I don't take payoffs. It's not a payoff, it's compensation for the danger I put you in. The answer is still no. Mike, be practical. Think about your daughter. I am thinking about her. What lesson does it teach if I take money to walk away when someone needs help? Sarah stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. You're serious. Dead serious. Mike looked her straight in the eyes. Most people would take the money. I'm not most people. From the living room, Lily called out, Daddy, I'm hungry. The pantry's fully stocked, Sarah said. I can cook something. You cook. I used to, before I became too important to do normal things. There was sadness in her voice. They made lunch together, grilled cheese and tomato soup, Lily's favorite. Sarah moved awkwardly in the kitchen at first, like she was remembering skills she hadn't used in years. But gradually she relaxed, even laughing when Lily insisted on cutting her sandwich into dinosaur shapes with cookie cutters they found in a drawer. Someone's been here with kids, Sarah murmured, looking at the cookie cutters. Whose cabin is this, really? Mike asked. Mine, but I had hoped. She shrugged. I bought it thinking maybe someday I'd have a family, kids to bring here. Stupid, right? I can barely take care of myself. Not stupid, Mike said, hopeful. After lunch, Lily explored the cabin, declaring it the best adventure ever. While Mike and Sarah worked on their problem, Sarah had connected to her company's servers, her fingers flying over the laptop keyboard. There, she said finally. I'm in. What are you looking for? Transaction records, email trails, anything that proves Bradley's been stealing. Her face darkened as she read. Oh my God. What? It's worse than I thought. He's not just embezzling. He's been selling company secrets. Our research, our contracts, our bid proposals, everything. To who? Competitors, foreign companies, anyone who'd pay. She kept scrolling, her face growing paler. Mike, he's destroyed everything I built. Even if I stop him, the company might not survive this. You'll rebuild. With what, my reputation will be ruined. Who's going to trust a CEO who let this happen under her nose? Mike didn't have an answer for that. Sarah's phone rang, not one of the burners, but her secure line. She looked at the caller ID and her face went white. It's Bradley. Don't answer, but she already had putting it on speaker. Hello, Sarah. Having fun playing house? Bradley's voice was calm, conversational. Harrison, I have to admit, you've impressed me. The cabin was clever off the books, untraceable. Except you forgot one thing. Sarah's hands were shaking. What? I've been watching you for years. I know all your hiding spots, all your backup plans. Did you really think I didn't know about the cabin? Mike moved to the window. Through the trees, he could see movement vehicles approaching. They're here, he said. Oh, and Sarah? Bradley's voice turned harder. This time I'm not sending the B team. These are professionals, military training. They have orders to make it look like a murder-suicide. Desperate woman kills the man who helped her, his daughter, then herself. Tragic, really. The line went dead. Lily, Mike called. Come here, baby, right now. She appeared at the top of the stairs, picking up on his tension immediately. Daddy, we're leaving. Get your dinosaur. Sarah was already at the safe, pulling out everything, money, documents, and a gun Mike hadn't noticed before. You know how to use that, he asked. I took lessons after the first death threat years ago. She checked the magazine with practiced efficiency. But I've never shot at a person. Hopefully you won't have to. They could hear engines now getting closer. Mike scooped up Lily, who wrapped her arms around his neck without question. Kids from rough neighborhoods learned early when not to ask questions. Back door, Sarah said, leading the way. They slipped out just as the first SUV pulled up to the front. The woods behind the cabin were thick offering cover. Mike carried Lily, her face buried in his shoulder, while Sarah led them along what might have been a deer trail. Behind them shouts the sound of the cabin door being kicked in. They ran. The trail led down toward a stream Mike could hear but not see. The underbrush grabbed at their clothes branches, whipping at their faces. Lily stayed silent, her arms tight around Mike's neck. A gunshot cracked through the air. Bark exploded from a tree inches from Mike's head. "Down!" Sarah yelled. They dropped behind a fallen log, Lily whimpering softly. Mike held her tight, his hand over her head, trying to make them as small as possible. "Give it up, Sarah," a man's voice, not Bradley's. "You're just making this harder." Sarah rose slightly, fired twice in the direction of the voice. The shots were impossibly loud in the quiet forest. Someone cursed and Mike heard them diving for cover. "We have to keep moving," Sarah whispered. They crawled along the ground using the log as cover until they reached thicker woods. Then they ran again, Mike's legs burning from carrying Lily, his lungs screaming for air. The stream appeared suddenly, wider than expected, water rushing over rocks. Sarah didn't hesitate, plunging in. The water was glacial, straight from mountain snowmelt. Mike gasped as he followed, holding Lily high to keep her as dry as possible. They waded downstream, the current trying to knock them over stones slippery under their feet. Behind them, voices and crashing through brush. Their pursuers had reached the stream. Around a bend, Sarah spotted something and grabbed Mike's arm, pointing. A culvert where the stream went under a road. They ducked inside, pressed against the concrete walls, water rushing past their legs. Mike could hear his heart pounding, Lily's quick breathing, Sarah's teeth chattering. They waited, footsteps above them on the road, voices muffled but close. They went downstream. "You sure? Where else upstream is too steep?" The footsteps moved away. They waited another 5 minutes, then carefully emerged. The road was empty, a 2-lane mountain highway Mike didn't recognize. "Which way?" he asked. Sarah looked both directions, calculating. "Down, toward town. We need people around us. Witnesses." They walked along the road's edge, ready to dive into the woods at the first sound of an engine. Lily had gone quiet in that way kids did when they knew something was very wrong, her face serious beyond her years. After maybe a mile, they heard a car coming. Mike tensed, ready to run, but it was just an old pickup, a local by the look of it. The truck slowed and an elderly man leaned out. "You folks okay? You look like you've been swimming with your clothes on." Mike and Sarah exchanged glances. "Car went off the road back there," Mike said. "We're okay, but we need to get to town." "Hop in, I'll give you a ride." They climbed into the truck bed, huddling together for warmth. The old man drove them into Estes Park, dropping them at a small motel on the main strip. "You sure you don't need a hospital?" he asked. "We're fine," Sarah assured him. "Thank you so much." The motel clerk looked at them suspiciously, soaking wet, disheveled, Sarah's face bruised. But Sarah slid cash across the counter, and his concerns evaporated. The room was small but clean. Mike immediately turned the heater on full blast while Sarah deadbolted the door and pulled the curtains. "Daddy, I'm cold," Lily said, her first words in an hour. "I know, baby. Let's get you into a hot shower." While Mike got Lily warm and into dry clothes from the backpack, Sarah sat on the bed staring at the gun in her hands. "I almost killed someone," she said quietly when Mike emerged from the bathroom, Lily wrapped in towels. I've made hard decisions, fired people, destroyed competitors, but it's different when it's physical, when it's real." She looked up at him. "How are you so calm?" "I'm not calm, I'm terrified. But Lily needs me to be strong, so I am." Lily came out of the bathroom in fresh clothes, her dinosaur clutched to her chest. "Daddy, are those bad men gone?" Mike knelt down to her level. "Yeah, baby, they're gone." "Were they trying to hurt Sarah?" He glanced at Sarah, then back to his daughter. "Yeah, but we didn't let them." "Good." Lily walked over to Sarah, studied her for a moment, then climbed onto the bed beside her. "Don't worry, my daddy won't let anyone hurt you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Mike over Lily's head, and something passed between them. An understanding, maybe, or a promise. "We need a new plan," Mike said. "I know," Sarah wiped her eyes. "Bradley won't stop. He can't. He's in too deep. So we stop him first. How he has resources, connections. You have those too. You're just not thinking like him." "What do you mean?" Mike sat on the other bed facing them. "You're thinking like a Soena. Legal channels proper procedures. He's thinking like a criminal. Maybe it's time you did too. I don't know how to think like a criminal. Lucky for you, I do. He gave her a small smile, remembering his younger days fixing cars that weren't always legally acquired. You're going to help me take down Bradley and get your company back. And I'm going to make sure he never threatens my daughter again. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, where do we start? We start by disappearing, really disappearing. Then we hit him where he's not expecting it, his money. You said he's been embezzling for years. That money has to be somewhere. We find it. We find his weakness. From the bed, Lily piped up. Are we going to be like spies? Mike ruffled her hair. Something like that, kiddo. Cool, can I have a code name? Despite everything, Sarah laughed. What code name do you want? Lily thought seriously. Velociraptor. That's a pretty fierce code name, Sarah said. Velociraptors were smart and worked in packs, Lily explained. Like us. Mike met Sarah's eyes. Out of the mouths of babes. Okay, Velociraptor, he said. Let's figure out how to catch the bad guys. The Denver Public Library's main branch rose like a fortress of glass and steel against the morning sky. Mike stood across the street watching the early foot traffic cataloging exits and entrances. Beside him, Sarah adjusted the baseball cap that hid most of her bruised face. You sure about this? The library has public computers. No registration required if you know which ones to use. I can access my offshore accounts from there. It had been 3 days since Estes Park. 3 days of cheap motels, gas station food, and constantly looking over their shoulders. Lily was at a McDonald's play place 2 blocks away with $70 in her pocket and strict instructions to call 911 if Mike didn't return in an hour. They entered separately. Mike first, just another construction worker on break. Sarah 5 minutes later, hunched and shuffling like someone down on their luck. They'd bought the disguises at a thrift store, worn clothes, old backpacks, the invisible uniform of the forgotten. The computers were on the 3rd floor. Sarah sat at a terminal in the corner, while Mike positioned himself where he could watch both her and the entrance. She worked quickly, fingers flying over the keyboard. Got it, she whispered after 20 minutes. They left the way, they came separately, meeting at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. Well, Bradley's been moving the money through shell companies, 15 of them all registered in different states, different countries, but they all lead back to one account in the Caymans. How much? $63 million. Mike whistled low. That's more than you thought. He's been at it longer than I realized. Maybe since the beginning. Her face hardened. I trusted him. When I started the company, he was one of the first people I hired. He was brilliant with numbers, had vision. I thought he believed in what we were building. Maybe he did. People change. Or maybe I just never really knew him. She pulled out a burner phone. I need to make a call. To who? The one person I know Bradley hasn't bought. My lawyer, former lawyer, Rachel Winters. My cousin. Mike tensed. Family can be compromised too. Not Rachel. She hates Bradley. Always has. Said he reminded her of a snake in an expensive suit. Smart woman. Sarah dialed, waited. When someone answered, her whole demeanor changed. Rachel, it's me. Don't say my name. Just listen. She gave her cousin an abbreviated version of events, speaking in code they'd apparently established years ago. When she hung up, she looked marginally more hopeful. She'll help. She's going to file injunctions, freeze the accounts Bradley doesn't know we know about. Buy us time. Buy us. Time for what? To prove everything. Take it to the FBI. The FBI Bradley claims to have bought. Not all of them. Rachel has a contact. Someone clean. They picked up Lily, who was entertaining a group of younger kids with dinosaur facts. She ran to Mike, Happy Meal toy in hand. Daddy, look, it's a T-Rex. In the car, another beater Sarah had bought with cash. Lily chattered about her morning while Mike drove, and Sarah made notes on a legal pad. We need proof, she muttered. Physical proof. Documents recording something. Where would that be? Bradley's office, maybe? Or his home? You know where he lives. Penthouse in Lodo has security like Fort Knox. What about the office? Winters Tower, 43rd floor. My security codes are definitely revoked by now. Mike thought, what about maintenance cleaning crews? Sarah looked at him. You're thinking of breaking in. I'm thinking of walking in. Big difference. That night they left Lily with Rachel. Sarah had resisted, but Rachel insisted. She'll be safer with me than running around the city with you two playing Mission Impossible, Rachel had said. She was a small woman with Sarah's cheekbones and sharp eyes that missed nothing. I have security, and I'm not on Bradley's radar. Lily had taken to Rachel immediately, especially when she learned Rachel had a cat named Professor Whiskers. You'll come back, right? Lily asked Mike as he tucked her into the guest bed. Always, baby. And Sarah, too. Mike glanced at Sarah hovering in the doorway. Yeah, her too. Now Mike stood outside Winter's Tower and wearing a janitor's uniform Sarah had somehow procured complete with ID badge from a company that actually serviced the building. The night shift starts at $10 a darn. Sarah's voice came through the earpiece they'd bought at an electronics store. You'll have maybe an hour before the real crew shows up. Where are you? Oh, coffee shop across the street. I've got eyes on the lobby. Mike pushed a cleaning cart through the service entrance. The security guard barely glanced at his badge. Just another invisible person doing invisible work. The service elevator went to every floor without requiring special access. The benefits of being beneath notice. Mike wrote it to 43, his heart hammering. Bradley's office was at the end of the hall. Double doors that screamed executive importance. Mike tried the handle locked, obviously, but the conference room next door wasn't, and the wall between them was just a partition with a shared ventilation system above the drop ceiling. Mike had spent his youth exploring places he shouldn't be. Some skills you never forgot. He stood on the conference table, pushed up a ceiling tile, and hauled himself into the crawl space. It was tight, dusty, filled with cables and pipes. He crawled carefully following the ductwork until he was over Bradley's office. The ceiling tiles here were different, reinforced, but there was an access panel for the HVAC system. Mike carefully removed it and dropped down onto Bradley's desk. I'm in. Be careful. The office was ridiculous. Floor-to-ceiling Windows furniture that cost more than Mike made in a year. Abstract art that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. But Mike wasn't here for a tour. He found the computer, but it was password protected. The desk drawers were locked. He pulled out the lockpicks he'd kept from his teenage years, still carried them out of habit more than anything. The bottom drawer opened after 30 seconds of work. Inside were files, USB drives, and a small black notebook. Jackpot. He photographed everything with the phone Sarah had given him page by page. Bank statements, correspondence, handwritten notes that looked like account numbers. Mike, get out. Someone just entered the building. Executive elevator. Mike shoved everything back, relocked the drawer. He could hear the elevator now, that expensive whisper of well-maintained machinery. He climbed back onto the desk, pulled himself into the ceiling, just as he heard footsteps in the hall. The access panel wouldn't go back properly. It kept catching on something. The footsteps stopped outside the door, the sound of a key in the lock. Mike let go of the panel and scrambled backward through the crawl space, moving as fast as he dared. He could hear the office door openings of low footsteps on that expensive carpet. He dropped back into the conference room just as lights went on in Bradley's office, visible through the frosted glass partition. Mike grabbed his cleaning cart, tried to look busy. The conference room door opened. Bradley Nash stood there, still in his expensive suit, despite the late hour. What are you doing here? Mike kept his head down, affected a slight accent. Cleaning, sir. Conference room on the schedule. The conference room is cleaned in the morning. Special request, sir. Something about a big meeting tomorrow. Bradley studied him. Mike could feel those cold eyes cataloging every detail. What's your name? Miguel, sir. Miguel what? Rodriguez. Bradley pulled out his phone. Let me verify that with... The fire alarm went off. The sound was deafening, strobe lights flashing. Bradley cursed, looking toward his office, then back at Mike, but Mike was already moving, pushing the cart toward the exit. Emergency evacuation, sir, he called over the alarm. We all have to leave. Bradley hesitated, clearly torn between suspicion and protocol. The alarm made the decision for him. He headed for his office, probably to grab something important. Mike didn't wait to see what. He abandoned the cart and ran for the stairs. Nice timing, he said into his earpiece as he descended. I have my moments. Meet you at the rendezvous. The rendezvous was a parking garage 6 blocks away. Sarah was waiting in the car, engine running. Mike jumped in, and they drove not too fast, not too slow, just another car in the night traffic. Did you get it? Mike held up the phone. Everything, including what looks like a ledger of payments to cops, judges, city officials. My God, how deep does this go? Deep enough that we need to be very careful about our next move. They drove back to Rachel's house where Lily was asleep on the couch with Professor Whiskers curled on her chest. The sight made something tighten in Mike's chest. This was what normal looked like, what safe looked like. She tried to stay awake, Rachel said softly. Wanted to make sure you came back. Mike carefully picked up his daughter, cradling her against his chest. She stirred but didn't wake. We need to review what you found, Rachel said. Tonight, Sarah corrected. Bradley knows someone was in his office. He'll accelerate whatever he's planning. They spread the photos across Rachel's dining room table. The ledger was damning names, dates, amounts. Judges who'd ruled in Winters Technology's favor, cops who'd buried investigations, city councilors who'd pushed through favorable zoning. This is enough to bring down half the city government, Rachel breathed. Which is why Bradley won't hesitate to kill to protect it, Sarah said. These people won't let him fall. He knows too much. So what do? We make it public, all of it before they can stop us. How? Sarah smiled, and it was sharp. I call a press conference tomorrow morning as CEO of Winters Technologies. Bradley will try to stop you. He'll try, but I'm done hiding, done running. She looked at Mike. What do you think, Mike thought about Lily asleep in the next room. About the life they'd built, small and struggling, but theirs. About what would happen if they failed. I think it's time to end this. Rachel made calls through the night, reaching out to journalists she trusted, setting up the conference at a hotel downtown. Sarah worked on her statement, crafting each word carefully. Mike sat by the window watching the street, the gun they'd taken from the cabin within reach. As dawn broke over Denver, Sarah stood from the table exhausted but determined. I need to look like myself, she said, like the CEO, not a refugee. Rachel produced a suit from her closet designer, still with tags. I bought it for a court appearance, never wore it. It fits Sarah perfectly. Mike watched her transformation. Hair pulled back, makeup covering the worst of the bruising posture, straightening into command. She looked like the woman from the magazine covers he'd seen at grocery store checkouts. You clean up nice. You should see me when I haven't been running for my life. Maybe I will. Something passed between them, there and gone. Lily woke up, rubbing her eyes. Are we going home today? Not yet, baby, Mike said, but soon. Is Sarah going to that important meeting she was practicing for? Yeah, she is. Lily walked over to Sarah, looked up at her. You look pretty, but also scary. Like a queen. Queens have to be a little scary sometimes. To protect their kingdom. Exactly. The press conference was scheduled for 900 a.m. By 8:30, they were in position. Rachel and Sarah in the hotel, Mike across the street with sight lines to all entrances. Lily was with Rachel's assistant, a grandmotherly woman named Mrs. Chen, at a park several miles away. Reporters are arriving, Rachel reported through the phone. Mike watched black sedans pull up to the hotel, not reporters. You've got company, 4 cars, professional drivers. Bradley's people. Has to be. We continue as planned. The conference room filled quickly. Mike recognized some faces from the news, others from the photos in Bradley's ledger. They all looked nervous. At exactly 9, Sarah walked in. The room erupted in questions, flashes from cameras. She stood at the podium waiting for quiet. Thank you for coming. 3 days ago, an attempt was made on my life. The person responsible was Bradley Nash, CFO of Winters Technologies. The room exploded again. Sarah raised her hand for silence. Mr. Nash has been embezzling from Winters Technologies for over 8 years. The total amount stolen exceeds $60 million. But that's not why he tried to kill me. She clicked a remote. The screen behind her showed the first page of the ledger. He tried to kill me because I discovered this. Mike watched the room react. Some reporters leaned forward, hungry for the story. Others, the ones on Bradley's payroll, shifted uncomfortably. This is a record of bribes paid to public officials, law enforcement, and members of the media. That caused a stampede. Half the room tried to leave at once. Security guards, real ones hired by Rachel, blocked the exits. No one leaves until I'm finished, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the chaos. From his position, Mike saw movement. 3 men pushing through the lobby, heading for the conference room. He recognized the walk, the purpose. Military. Incoming, he said into his phone. Rachel heard him through her earpiece, whispered to Sarah. But Sarah didn't stop, just spoke faster. The FBI has been provided with all documentation. Arrests are being made as we speak. That was the signal. FBI agents who'd been positioned around the room stepped forward, badges out. The three military types in the lobby stopped reassessing. Then Mike saw him, Bradley Nash, stepping out of a car right in front of the hotel. He didn't look panicked. He looked furious. Bradley's here. Bradley walked into the hotel like he owned it, which Mike supposed he sort of did. The military types fell in behind him. He's coming up. 4 men total. In the conference room, Sarah continued presenting evidence. Bank records, emails recorded, conversations Bradley didn't know had been captured. The conference room doors burst open. Bradley stood there, his cold eyes finding Sarah. This woman is mentally unstable. She's been under psychiatric care for paranoid delusions. Nice try, Sarah replied, but I have receipts. She clicked the remote again. A video played Bradley in his office, talking on the phone. Just kill her. Make it look like an accident. I don't care how much it costs. The room went dead silent. Bradley's face didn't change. That's fabricated, deepfake technology. From your own security system. Date stamped 3 days ago, 2 hours before the first attempt on my life. The FBI agents moved toward Bradley. He stepped back, his men forming a wall. You have no authority. Actually, we do. An older agent stepped forward, badge prominently displayed. Bradley Nash, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and racketeering. Bradley looked around the room, maybe expecting support from the people he'd bought, but they were all either already in custody or desperately trying to distance themselves. His eyes found Sarah again. You stupid, you have no idea what you've done. I've taken back my company. You've destroyed it. Without me, Winters is nothing. We'll see about that. The agents moved in. Bradley's men stepped aside. Mercenaries were practical about lost causes. As they cuffed him, Bradley looked at Sarah one more time. This isn't over. Yes, it is. They let him out. The reporters surged forward shouting questions. Sarah answered them calmly, professionally, like she hadn't just faced down the man who tried to kill her. Mike made his way to the hotel, pushing through the crowd. When Sarah saw him, something in her composed expression cracked just for a moment. She stepped away from the podium, and suddenly she was just a tired woman who'd been running too long. We did it. You did it. No, I couldn't have done any of this without you. Before Mike could respond, Rachel appeared with Lily in tow. His daughter ran to him, jumping into his arms. Daddy, we saw it on TV. Sarah was like a superhero. Yeah, Mike said, looking at Sarah over his daughter's head. She kinda was. The aftermath was chaos. Interviews, statements, federal agents wanting to go over every detail. But finally, as the sun set over Denver, they found themselves back at Rachel's house. Lily was asleep again, this time in a proper bed. Professor Whiskers had claimed her as his person purring on her pillow. Mike and Sarah sat on the back porch, beers in hand, the first alcohol either had touched in days. So what now? Mike asked. Now I rebuild. The board will probably fire me, too much scandal, even though I was the victim. I'll fight it. She shrugged. Maybe it's time for something new anyway. Like what? I don't know, something smaller. Something where I actually know all my employees. What about you? Back to work, I guess. The gas station, the shop. Bills don't pay themselves. Mike, she hesitated. I want to offer you something, not charity. About. He raised an eyebrow. Head of security for whatever I do next. You've more than proven yourself. I fix cars, Sarah. I'm not a bodyguard. You're someone I trust. That's worth more than any resume. Mike thought about it. A real job with real pay, benefits, stability for Lily. Can I think about it? Of course, she stood. I should go. Let you get back to your life. Sarah, thank you for protecting Lily when those men came, for making sure she was safe. She's an amazing kid. You've done a great job with her. Her mom did most of it. I'm just trying to keep up. Sarah smiled. I think you're doing better than you know. After she left, Mike stood on the porch for a longer time thinking about how much had changed in just a few days. How a simple act of kindness had spiraled into something that transformed everything. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Dinner tomorrow, my treat. Somewhere with dinosaur nuggets for Lily. Mike smiled and typed back, "It's a date." Then he went inside to check on his daughter, his miraculous dinosaur-obsessed daughter who'd somehow stayed innocent through all of this. She was sleeping peacefully, one arm around Professor Whiskers, the other clutching her T-Rex toy. Everything he'd done, every risk he'd taken, had been for her to show her that standing up for others mattered, that doing the right thing was worth it, even when it was dangerous. Looking at her now, safe and dreaming, he knew he'd do it all again. 3 weeks after Bradley's arrest, Mike was teaching a group of neighborhood kids how to change oil at Rodriguez Auto when the bell above the door jingled. He looked up to see Sarah standing there looking every inch the CEO in a tailored suit, but with dark circles under her eyes that the expensive makeup couldn't quite hide. "Got a minute?" Her voice was strained professional. Mike nodded to his boss, who waved him off. They stepped outside into the autumn sunlight. "What's wrong? Bradley's dead." Mike felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Hotel found in his cell this morning. They're calling it suicide, but—" Her eyes met his and he saw the fear there. "Mike, a man like Bradley doesn't kill himself." Someone silenced him. "Who?" "That's what scares me. I don't know." She handed him a newspaper. "But look at this." The business section featured a profile of William Foster Winters, technology's largest investor. The article praised his steady hand during the company's unfortunate leadership crisis. His quote jumped out, "Sometimes a company outgrows its founder. Winters needs professional management, now not emotional decisions." "He's making a move," Mike said, understanding immediately. "Using Bradley's death to push you out." "The board meets tomorrow. I'm almost certain they'll vote to remove me." She wasn't asking for sympathy, just stating facts. "Foster's been buying up shares, calling in proxies. I've only been back for 3 weeks, and already you're not giving up." "No, but I need to be smart. Foster isn't Bradley. He's worse, smarter, more connected patient. He was Bradley's mentor. Did you know that? Brought him into the company?" Mike looked at the photograph in the paper. William Foster, 60-something, silver-haired, with the practiced smile of someone used to getting his way. He'd seen that type before: country club memberships, political connections, the kind of power that never needed to raise its voice. "What do you need from me?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about your answer to my job offer." "Sarah, I understand why you hesitated. It's not the right fit. But I have another idea." She handed him a folder. "This is a business plan for a training center, converting conventional cars to electric, using your skills to teach others." Mike opened the folder, scanned the contents. Detailed financials, property listings, equipment needs. "You want to start a business with everything happening. Foster wants Winters for the patents, the contracts. He doesn't care about the community programs I've been developing. First thing he'll do is kill them, but I can spin them off before the board meeting. Legally, they're structured as separate entities. I just need someone to run them. Someone like me. Someone exactly like you. You understand cars better than anyone I know. You're great with people, patient. You could build something, Mike, something that's yours, not just a job working for someone else." Mike studied the plans more carefully. The numbers were solid. The concept was good practical training for real jobs focusing on emerging technology. The kind of opportunity he never had. "This is serious money, Sarah, millions. It's my money, my personal funds, not the company's. Even if Foster pushes me out, he can't touch it." "Why would you do this?" Sarah looked away across the street where people were going about their normal lives. "When I was running for my life, hiding in culverts and cheap motels, I kept thinking about what really mattered. It wasn't the corner office or the stock options. It was building something worthwhile." She turned back to him. "This is worthwhile, Mike. This is real. I'd need to think about it. Talk to Lily." "Of course." The shop door opened and Mike's boss leaned out. "Reynolds' phone call. Says it's your daughter's school." Mike's stomach dropped. He took the call inside, Sarah following. The principal's voice was tight with forced calm. "Mr. Reynolds, there was an incident. Lily's fine, but I need you to come right away." 20 minutes later, Mike burst through the elementary school doors with Sarah right behind him. The principal met them in the hallway outside his office. "Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Winters, a family friend," Sarah said smoothly. "What happened?" A man tried to pick Lily up from school, said he was her uncle, had the proper ID, even knew the family password. But Lily didn't recognize him and refused to go. When the teacher questioned him, he left quickly. We've called the police, of course. Mike's knees nearly buckled. Where is she? In my office. She's shaken, but okay. Lily flew into Mike's arms the moment he entered the office. He held her tight, feeling her small heart hammering against his chest. It's okay, baby. I'm here. He knew the password, Daddy, but he wasn't anyone we know, and his eyes were scary. Mike looked at Sarah over Lily's head. He didn't need to say it. They both knew. Foster. The police took statements, promised to investigate. Mike didn't have faith in their promises. Not anymore. Not after seeing Bradley's ledger with half the department on the take. That night, Mike made a call he'd been avoiding. The phone rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. Sanchez Auto Body. Tommy, it's Mike Reynolds. A long pause. Christ, Reynolds, this better be important. It is. I need the crew. Another pause. The crew hasn't existed for 5 years. It does tonight. A sigh heavy with resignation and something else, anticipation maybe. Usual place. 1 hour. This about what's on the news, the Winters thing. Yeah. All right, I'll make calls. Mike hung up, turned to Sarah, who was sitting at Rachel's kitchen table. Lily asleep upstairs with 2 of Rachel's security team standing guard. Help is coming. What kind of help? The kind that doesn't ask questions and knows how to handle problems outside the system. Sarah didn't press, or didn't. She'd seen enough in the past few weeks to understand there were sides to Mike Reynolds she hadn't yet discovered. Foster will come after you, she said quietly, after what happened today with Lily. Let him try. Mike's voice was steel, the voice of a man who'd found his line in the sand. The mistake Bradley made was thinking I was just some mechanic. Foster's making the same mistake. He doesn't understand what a father will do to protect his child. And what will you do, Mike? He met her gaze steadily. Whatever it takes. These people, they think money and connections make them untouchable. Time they learn different. Sarah reached across the table, took his hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. Then we teach them. Together. 1 hour later, they pulled up to a garage in 5 Points, officially closed, but lights glowing behind the drawn blinds. Mike hadn't been here in years, not since Lily was born, and he'd promised Caroline he was done with that life. But promises to the living sometimes had to bend to protect them. Wait here, he told Sarah. Not a chance. We're partners now. Remember? He didn't argue. They entered together, and for a moment Mike was thrown back in time. The same scarred wooden workbench. The same smell of oil and cigarettes. The same faces, just a little older, a little more worn. Tommy, Luis, Maria, Diego. His crew. The family he'd chosen before life had given him Lily. Tommy spoke first. Thought you were out for good, Reynolds. I was. Things changed. The CEO. Tommy jerked his chin toward Sarah. She's the thing that changed. No, Mike said firmly. Someone tried to take my daughter today. That's what changed. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. These people might be rough around the edges, might skirt the law when it suited them, but they had a code. Children were off limits. Always. Who? Maria asked, her voice dangerous. William Foster. Billionaire wants to take over Winters Technologies. Thinks removing Sarah and scaring me will solve his problems. Luis whistled low. Foster, man, you don't mess around. Why not just call the cops? Foster owns half the department, Sarah said. The other half is too scared to touch him. Diego, who'd become a cop himself, nodded reluctantly. She's not wrong. Foster's untouchable through official channels. Tommy crossed his arms. So what's the play? Mike looked at each of them in turn, these people who'd known him at his worst and never judged. We need to find his weakness. Everyone has one. Luis, I need you to do what you do best. Digital footprint finances communications. Maria medical records, his family, anyone close to him. Diego, any cases involving Foster that got buried. Tommy, transportation and backup. And what do you and the CEO do? Tommy asked. Mike glanced at Sarah. We're going to set a trap. Foster wants Winters Technologies. We'll let him think he's winning. Draw him out, make him sloppy. And then, Luis asked. Sarah's voice was calm, controlled, but with an edge Mike had never heard before. Then we take everything from him, just like he tried to do to us. The glass and steel building of Winters Technologies reflected the morning sun like a burnished shield, a fortress under siege. Mike stood across the street watching employees file through the revolving doors, most with strained expressions and darting eyes. The company had always been a beacon of innovation and growth, but in the weeks since Bradley's death, it had transformed into something unrecognizable, a corporate battlefield where loyalty shifted with the wind. "You don't have to do this," Mike said, his breath fogging in the November chill. Sarah straightened her jacket, squaring her shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. "Yes, I do. If I don't show up for the board meeting, Foster wins by default." They'd spent the last 48 hours preparing for this confrontation. Luis had dug deep into Foster's digital footprint, uncovering offshore accounts, questionable real estate deals, and communications with Bradley that predated the embezzlement scheme. Maria had discovered Foster's carefully hidden medical records, heart condition, medication dependencies, 3 quiet rehab stays for alcohol. Diego had found 7 police reports involving Foster that had mysteriously disappeared from official records. But their most valuable discovery came from Tommy's surveillance of Foster's executive assistant. "Remember the plan?" Mike touched her elbow briefly. "Don't let him bait you. Just get through the meeting. And if they vote me out, then we move to Plan B." Sarah nodded, the tight set of her jaw betraying her tension. "Amanda Hayes reached out again. Says she has more evidence against Foster. Wants to meet." "I still don't trust her. Former business partner turned whistleblower feels too convenient." "I know. That's why I told her we'd meet at the gala tonight. Public setting security witnesses." Mike checked his watch. "Meeting starts in 20 minutes. I'll be in position by then." "And Lily?" "Safe. Rachel's security took her to the mountains. New location off everyone's radar." Relief softened Sarah's features momentarily. "Thank you for everything. Go get your company back." Sarah walked toward the building, the sharp click of her heels against concrete broadcasting a confidence Mike knew she wasn't entirely feeling. He'd come to recognize the subtle tells beneath her CEO exterior, the slight tightening around her eyes when she was worried, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when strategizing, the soft hum she made when deep in thought. Small glimpses of the woman behind the power suit. Mike circled to the service entrance where Luis waited in a van filled with surveillance equipment. The young hacker's fingers danced across 3 keyboards, simultaneously screens displaying security camera feeds, email traffic, and something that looked like building schematics. "We're live in the boardroom," Luis said without looking up. "Audio and video. Foster arrived 10 minutes ago with his team. 5 suits, all carrying tablets. They look like they're preparing for a coronation, not a meeting." "Can Sarah hear us?" "Earpiece is active, one way only. We can feed her info, but she can't respond without looking crazy." Mike settled into the chair beside Luis, eyes scanning the monitors. The boardroom filled with men and women in expensive clothes, all with the same predatory look. Sarah entered chin-high stride, purposeful. The room's energy shifted immediately, chairs turning, conversations halting mid-sentence. William Foster sat at the head of the table, a position that should have been Sarah's. Silver-haired, lean, with the kind of tan that spoke of winter homes and tropical locations. He rose with practiced grace, extending a hand Sarah deliberately ignored. "Ms. Winters, how kind of you to join us. We were just discussing the company's path forward." Sarah took her seat at the opposite end of the table. "I wasn't aware we needed a new path, Mr. Foster. Our Q3 results exceeded projections by 17%. "Yes, impressive numbers." Foster's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Before the unfortunate public scandal, of course." "You mean before I exposed criminal activity that was bleeding the company dry, that scandal?" Foster's smile tightened a fraction. "The board has concerns about leadership stability. Markets hate uncertainty. They hate fraud more." A woman midway down the table cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should proceed with the agenda. First item, confidence vote regarding current leadership." Mike watched Sarah's face on the monitor, saw the imperceptible flinch. They'd expected this, but not so quickly, not as the first item. Foster was more confident than they'd anticipated. "Mr. Reynolds," Luis whispered, tapping a screen showing an underground parking garage. "We have movement. Someone's accessing the electrical room." Mike tensed. "Foster's planning something." On the boardroom feed, Foster was speaking smoothly about regrettable necessity and fiduciary responsibility while passing folders to each board member. Mike couldn't see the contents, but Sarah's expression told him enough. Luis, what's in those folders? Luis's fingers flew across the keyboard. Working on it, trying to access the board portal. Got it. His face fell. Oh, that's dirty. Doctored emails showing Sarah knew about Bradley's embezzlement. Financial records suggesting she benefited. Photos of her with known competitors. All fake, high-quality fakes. Good enough to create doubt. On screen, Sarah was flipping through the folder, her face carefully neutral, despite the blindside attack. These documents are fabricated, as I'm sure a basic forensic analysis will prove. The fact that Mr. Foster is presenting them suggests desperation, not evidence. Desperation. Foster laughed, the sound hollow through the speakers. Ms. Winters, I'm simply protecting my investment. This company deserves leadership untainted by scandal and poor judgment. Leadership like yours. Shall we discuss your relationship with Bradley Nash? Your meetings in Chicago last year, when the embezzlement scheme accelerated? Or perhaps your shared account in Grand Cayman? Foster's smile faltered for the first time. Baseless accusations won't save your position. Luis, Mike interrupted. The electrical room, what's happening? Security feed just cut. Switching to our backup. Luis typed frantically. Someone's at the main breaker. I think the boardroom monitor went black. Seconds later, the lights in the van flickered. Power surge. Luis explained, rebooting systems. Targeted the building's network infrastructure. They're isolating the boardroom. Mike grabbed his phone. Call Rachel. Tell her to push the files to every news outlet now. Foster's making his move. The backup generator kicked in, monitors flickering back to life. The boardroom was in disarray, board members looking around in confusion, Foster standing calmly as if nothing unusual had happened. My apologies for the interruption. Foster's voice was silk covering steel. These old buildings, such unreliable systems. Now where were we? Yes, the vote. Sarah stood, commanding attention. Before we continue, I think the board should know that Mr. Foster has just attempted to isolate this room to prevent information from leaving. Information about his involvement with Bradley Nash. Information that is at this moment being delivered to the FBI and major news outlets. Foster's composure slipped just for a moment before the mask reattached itself. More desperate fabrications. I'm disappointed, Sarah. I expected better from Jonathan's daughter. The mention of Sarah's father, the subtle implication that she was failing his legacy, was calculated to wound. Mike saw the hit land, saw Sarah's slight recoil. Let's proceed with the vote, Foster continued smoothly. Those in favor of removing Sarah Winters as CEO effective immediately. Hands rose around the table one by one. Mike counted silently. 6, 7, 8 out of 15. Not enough. Foster's smile tightened. Those opposed, 4 hands, still not enough. Abstentions, 3 hands. Foster's expression darkened as he calculated the numbers. That's not a majority either way. According to bylaws, we need... The boardroom door burst open. A woman in a perfectly tailored suit strode in, radiating authority. Mike recognized her from Luis's research. Amanda Hayes, former business partner of Foster, who'd reached out to Sarah claiming to have evidence. Forgive my tardiness, she announced. Traffic was abysmal. Foster's face hardened. This is a closed meeting, Amanda. For board members, yes. And as the holder of Richard Taylor's proxy, I believe I qualify. Murmurs rippled around the table. Richard Taylor was one of the abstaining voters, a longtime board member known for his cautious approach. Richard changed his proxy this morning. Amanda continued, taking an empty seat. He was most concerned about certain information that came to light regarding Mr. Foster's business practices. This is irregular, Foster sputtered, composure cracking. We've already started the vote. Then I'll cast my vote now, opposed to removal. 5 opposed. Still not enough to save Sarah's position. Amanda wasn't finished. I also hold proxies for James Chen and Martha Wilson. 7 opposed, majority secured. Foster's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous. These proxies haven't been verified. They were filed electronically this morning. Amanda slid a tablet across the table. All quite legal. I believe this concludes your attempted coup, William. The boardroom erupted in chaos, voices raising, accusations flying. Sarah remained standing, outwardly calm, despite the storm swirling around her. Foster leaned across the table, saying something the microphones didn't catch, his expression murderous. "We need to get her out of there," Mike said, already heading for the door. "Foster's cornered, and that makes him dangerous." Luis grabbed Mike's arm. "Wait, look." On screen, Sarah was speaking, her voice cutting through the chaos. "In light of today's events, I propose an emergency resolution. An independent audit of all company finances and communications, specifically examining William Foster's involvement with Bradley Nash." Amanda seconded immediately. Hands rose around the table, not just those who had opposed Sarah's removal, but several who had supported it, now scrambling to distance themselves from Foster. Foster stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. "This meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene when cooler heads prevail." "The motion has been raised and seconded," Sarah pressed. "According to bylaws, we vote now." Foster strode toward the door, tossing final words over his shoulder. "Enjoy your hollow victory, Sarah. This isn't over." The door slammed behind him. The vote proceeded, the audit approved unanimously by those remaining. Sarah had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. "That was too easy," Mike muttered as he watched Foster and his entourage storm through the lobby on the security feed. "He gave up too quickly." "He's regrouping," Luis agreed, "changing tactics." Mike's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Files delivered. News breaking in 15. Another battle line drawn. Foster would soon find himself fighting on multiple fronts, boardroom, media, legal system. But men like Foster didn't surrender, they escalated. Sarah exited the boardroom 40 minutes later, flanked by Amanda Hayes and two board members who had switched sides once the wind changed. Mike waited in the lobby, keeping a careful distance as instructed. Their association wasn't public knowledge, and for now that remained an advantage. Sarah spotted him, gave an imperceptible nod toward the street. Message received. He'd meet her at the rendezvous point. Rachel's downtown condo served as their war room, walls covered with flowcharts mapping Foster's business interests, timelines of the embezzlement scheme, and profiles of key players. Tommy, Maria, and Diego were already there when Mike arrived, discussing security arrangements for the charity gala, where Sarah would make her first public appearance since reclaiming her position. "Foster won't let this humiliation stand," Tommy warned, circling weak points on the venue layout. "He's old school, believes in sending messages." "That's what we're counting on," Mike replied. "We need him reactive, emotional, makes him sloppy." Sarah arrived 20 minutes later with Amanda Hayes in tow. The room tensed immediately, outsider alert. Amanda took in the operation with raised eyebrows. "When you said you had help, I wasn't expecting this." "This is exactly why we're still alive," Sarah replied. "Mike Luis found something." The hacker tapped his keyboard, bringing up financial records on the main screen. "Foster moved $30 million offshore this morning, not to his usual accounts. New setup, complex routing." "He's preparing to run," Amanda observed. "Or preparing to fight," Mike countered. "Either way, he's scared. The news is breaking now." He turned on the TV, where a somber anchor was already reporting on developing allegations against prominent Denver businessman William Foster. "We need to push harder," Sarah said. "The gala tonight is our chance. Half the city's power players will be there, plus media." "It's also a security nightmare," Tommy interjected. "Too many entrances, too many guests, minimal screening." "I'll handle security," Amanda offered. "My firm specializes in event protection. We can supplement the venue's team." Mike exchanged glances with Tommy. Neither trusted this convenient ally, regardless of how helpful she'd been at the board meeting. "Why are you helping us?" Mike asked bluntly. "What's your stake in this?" Amanda's practiced smile never wavered. "William Foster destroyed my company 5 years ago. Leveraged buyout stripped the assets, left me with nothing but debt and a tarnished reputation. I've been building evidence against him ever since, waiting for the right opportunity. And we're at the right opportunity. You're the first to land a real blow. Foster's never been this vulnerable." Sarah stepped between them. "We can debate motivations later. Right now we have a common enemy." Mike nodded, unconvinced but practical. "The gala starts at 7. Foster will be watching your every move, Sarah. You need to appear confident but not provocative. We want him angry, not homicidal." Too late for that, Luis called from his computer station. Just intercepted communications between Foster and some private security firm. Not as usual, guys. These have military backgrounds, specialized training. Mercenaries, Tommy translated. Foster's bringing in professional muscle. Sarah paled slightly but squared her shoulders. Then we adjust the plan. I'm still attending. So am I, Mike said. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. We need someone inside who can move freely, someone Foster won't be watching. He knows your face, Sarah objected. From the press conference, the board meeting surveillance. He knows I exist. He doesn't know what I look like up close, and he certainly won't be looking for me in a tuxedo. Tommy snorted. You own a tux, Reynolds. I will in 2 hours. Mike's phone buzzed a text from an unknown number containing a single image. His blood turned to ice. The photo showed Lily at Rachel's mountain safe house, clearly taken with a long-range lens through a window. The message below, Foster says, hello. He showed Sarah the screen, watched horror bloom across her face. How did they find her? We were so careful. Foster has resources we don't. Mike's voice sounded distant to his own ears, calm despite the panic clawing at his chest. Call Rachel. Now. Sarah frantically dialed, put the phone on speaker. Rachel answered on the first ring, her voice tense. We're moving her. Just got the alert from perimeter security. Someone behind the outer cameras. How long ago? 3 minutes. We're already in the car heading to contingency location. I've got 4 men with us. Switch routes. Don't use the planned backup. They're tracking you somehow. Mike's mind raced through possibilities. Check Lily's belongings. Anything new, anything she didn't have before. A pause muffled conversation. Then Rachel's voice sharper. The dinosaur backpack. It was delivered yesterday. Courier said it was from Sarah. Lily was so excited. GPS tracker. Get rid of it now. Already done. Dropped it going the opposite direction. Good. Go dark. No phones. I'll contact you through the secure channel later. The call ended, leaving the room in tense silence. Mike's hand clenched around his phone knuckles, white. Foster had crossed the final line. Everything else, the company, the money, the reputation, had been business. This was personal. The gala is off, Sarah said firmly. We can't risk, no. Mike's voice was steel. The gala is still on, but the plan has changed. Mike, he's targeting Lily. Exactly, which means he's desperate, reckless. We use that. Mike turned to the room. Foster wants a war. Let's give him one. The Denver Art Museum glittered like a jewel box, its angular modern architecture transformed by thousands of tiny lights for the annual charity gala. The city's elite arrived in a parade of luxury cars, designer gowns, and carefully crafted smiles. Inside, champagne flowed, checkbooks opened, and the machinery of high society philanthropy hummed along as it had for decades. Mike adjusted his borrowed tuxedo, feeling like an imposter among the wealthy and powerful. Tommy's voice came through his nearly invisible earpiece. Northeast entrance clear. Maria has eyes on the main hall. No sign of Foster yet. Keep scanning, Mike murmured, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter to blend in. Luis surveillance status. Luis stationed in a van 2 blocks away. All systems operational. I've tapped into the museum's security feeds. Mapping staff and guest movements now. Mike circulated slowly through the crowd, cataloging faces, exits, potential weapons. The weight of the ceramic knife strapped to his ankle was reassuring, small enough to bypass metal detectors, sharp enough to be effective if things went sideways. He hadn't carried a weapon since his wilder youth, but tonight wasn't about keeping his hands clean. It was about keeping Lily safe. Sarah arrived precisely on the schedule, a vision in midnight blue silk that triggered camera flashes and turned heads throughout the grand hall. She played her part perfectly, smiling, greeting supporters, projecting unshakable confidence despite the storm raging beneath the surface. Southern entrance, eh? Tommy's voice crackled. Foster just arrived. 3 men with him, trying to look like business associates but moving like security. Military posture. Copy, Mike replied softly, shifting position to maintain line of sight to Sarah while watching the new arrivals. Diego status. 2 plainclothes cops at the bar. They're watching Foster, not us. I think they're freelancing tonight, not official duty. Foster's bribing cops to be here, or they're keeping tabs on him. The investigation's gaining momentum. FBI interviewed half the department yesterday. William Foster cut through the crowd like a shark through calm waters, people instinctively moving aside conversations, pausing as he passed. He looked impeccable in a tuxedo that probably cost more than Mike's truck, his silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers. But beneath the polished exterior, Mike detected signs of strain, the too tight grip on his whiskey glass, the slight discoloration beneath eyes that suggested sleepless nights. Foster spotted Sarah across the room, their eyes locked in silent combat, neither willing to break contact first. Then Foster smiled, raised his glass in mock salute, and deliberately turned his back, a calculated insult. "He's baiting her," Mike warned through the comm. "Sarah, don't engage, not yet." Sarah gave no indication she'd heard, but she remained where she was, continuing her conversation with a museum board member as if nothing had happened. The gala's formal program began: speeches, awards, acknowledgments of generous donors. The crowd's attention focused on the small stage at the far end of the hall, providing cover for Mike to reposition closer to Sarah. "Incoming," Luis's voice urgent in his ear. "Foster's people are moving, two splitting off, heading for the east corridor." "That's near the electrical room," Maria added. "Same play as the board meeting." "I've got it," Diego responded. Moving to intercept. Mike kept his focus on Foster, who remained prominently visible near the stage. Too visible. The man was establishing an alibi, making sure dozens of witnesses could place him in plain sight, while his people did whatever they were planning. "Amanda Hayes just arrived," Tommy reported. "Solo looks tense." Mike spotted her immediately, striking in red, moving purposefully through the crowd towards Sarah. Her promised security detail was nowhere in sight. "Luis, check Amanda's communications." "On it." "Weird. Multiple calls in the last hour to a blocked number. Same pattern as Foster's security team." Ice slid down Mike's spine. "It's a setup. Amanda's working with Foster." He moved quickly but casually towards Sarah, maintaining the appearance of just another guest circulating at a social event. Amanda reached her first, touching Sarah's elbow to gain her attention, leaning in close to speak privately. Mike was still 10 feet away when he saw Sarah's expression change: confusion, then shock, then something like betrayal. Amanda was showing her something on her phone. Whatever it was, it had shattered Sarah's composure. "Sarah, don't," Mike started, but it was too late. Sarah was already moving, cutting directly across the room toward Foster, her face set in lines of cold fury. The crowd parted instinctively before her determined stride. "William," her voice carried just enough to turn nearby heads. "A word." Foster turned, pleasant surprise masking calculation. "Sarah, enjoying your temporary victory." "Where is she?" Foster's eyebrows rose in practiced innocence. "I'm afraid I don't follow." "My cousin, Rachel. Your men took her half an hour ago." Sarah's voice remained steady despite the tremor in her hands. "The photo Amanda just showed me." "Ah, Amanda can be so indiscreet." Foster sipped his whiskey, entirely unconcerned by the rage radiating from Sarah. "Insurance policy, nothing more. Your cousin is quite comfortable, I assure you. The child as well." Mike froze mid-step. "Lily." They had Lily. "If you hurt them," Sarah began. "That depends entirely on you." Foster's smile never reached his eyes. "The thumb drive in your evening bag contains signed confessions implicating yourself in Bradley's embezzlement scheme. Financial records showing your involvement from the beginning. Quite thorough. You'll announce your resignation tonight, citing personal reasons, and recommend me as interim CEO. The board will agree, they always do when properly motivated. And if I refuse, then this becomes a tragedy rather than merely a scandal. Your choice." Mike was close enough now to see the flicker of genuine malice behind Foster's polished veneer. This wasn't just business for him either. It was personal, a need to crush anyone who challenged his power. "Luis," Mike whispered urgently, "check Amanda's phone, the photo she showed Sarah." "Working on it. Got it. Remote access established." A pause. "Oh God. They've got them, Mike, Rachel and Lily. Some kind of warehouse setting. Timestamp shows 30 minutes ago." Mike's world narrowed to a pinpoint of rage and fear. Every instinct screamed to confront Foster directly, to force the location from him by any means necessary. But that wouldn't save Lily. Strategy would. Track Amanda's phone. All communications, locations, everything. Already on it. She made 3 calls after showing Sarah the photo. Tracing now. Mike edged closer to Sarah and Foster, catching the thread of their conversation. 1 hour, Foster was saying. Make your statement by then, or things become irreversible. I'll be waiting in the museum director's office. 3rd floor, east wing. He walked away casual, as if they'd been discussing nothing more important than the weather. Sarah stood frozen, the color drained from her face. Mike reached her side, gripped her elbow gently. We heard everything. Luis is tracking them. They have Lily. Her voice broke on the name. They have Rachel. I know, and we're getting them back. But first we need to play along. Give him what he wants. Make him think he's winning. Buy us time. Tommy's voice came through the comm. Foster's heading for the elevators with 2 of his guys. 3rd guy just slipped out the service entrance. Follow him, Mike instructed. Diego, what happened with the 2 headed for the electrical room? Intercepted. They're taking a nap in a storage closet. But there could be others. Maria, status on Amanda. Still in the main hall, working the crowd like nothing's happened. Cold piece of work. Luis broke in. I've got a location. Cell tower triangulation from Amanda's calls. Industrial area near the river. Abandoned meat packing plant. How sure are you? 90%. Multiple calls to that location in the past hour. Mike made his decision. Tommy, stay with Foster. Make sure he doesn't leave. Maria, keep eyes on Amanda. Diego, get the car and meet me out back. Luis, send the location to my phone. What about me? Sarah asked, her voice steadying as purpose replaced shock. You need to keep Foster occupied. Make him think you're getting the thumb drive ready, preparing your statement. Stall as long as you can. And then you bring the whole damn roof down on him. Mike slipped away through the crowd, moving with purpose but without drawing attention. Outside, the November night had turned bitter cold, the wind cutting through his tuxedo jacket. Diego pulled up in an unmarked sedan, engine running. Location's 20 minutes away. Faster with the lights. Diego's still technically a cop, despite his extracurricular activities. Tonight flipped a switch. Red and blue lights blazed from concealed positions in the grille and windshield. The siren remained silent, no need to advertise their approach. As they sped through Denver's nighttime streets, Mike checked the gun Diego had wordlessly passed him. Standard police issue Glock, fully loaded. The weight was unfamiliar. Mike had never been a gun person, had always preferred to solve problems with his mind and his hands. But tonight for Lily, he'd become whatever was necessary. Luis says he's got the building's original plans, Diego reported. Sending them now. 2 main entrances, multiple loading docks, central processing area offices on the mezzanine. How many heat signatures? Thermal imaging shows 5, maybe 6 people. 2 smaller figures separated from the others. Has to be Rachel and Lily. The abandoned meatpacking plant loomed against the night sky, a hulking concrete structure with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. Diego killed the lights 2 blocks away, coasting to a stop in the shadow of a defunct railway spur. Tommy reports Foster is still at the museum, getting impatient, making calls. Good, let him sweat. Mike checked his watch. We have maybe 30 minutes before he realizes something's wrong. They moved silently toward the building, staying low, using abandoned equipment for cover. A single guard stood smoking by a side entrance, looking bored and cold. Diego gestured, I'll take him. Mike nodded, watching as his friend circled wide, approaching from the guard's blind spot. One quick movement, arm around the throat, pressure on the carotid, and the guard slumped unconscious. Diego dragged him behind a dumpster, took his radio and access card. The door opened with a swipe, revealing a dimly lit corridor that smelled of old blood and industrial cleaner. They moved carefully, guided by the thermal imaging on Diego's phone. 2 more guards at the end of the hall, both armed, both alert. No clean approach, Diego whispered. We'll need a distraction. Mike thought quickly, surveyed their surroundings. Ancient sprinkler system overhead. Fire alarm panel on the wall. Sometimes the simplest solutions were best. The alarm screamed through the building, sprinklers sputtering to life with rusty water. The guards reacted predictably, cursing, looking up, momentarily distracted. Mike and Diego moved in perfect synchronization, years of street fighting combined with Diego's police training, making them an efficient team. 30 seconds later, both guards were unconscious, their weapons secured. Central processing area ahead. Diego indicated double doors at the corridor's end. Thermal shows 3 people inside. 2 small signatures in the corner. Mike nodded, hard hammering against his ribs. So close. On 3. They burst through the doors simultaneously. Diego going left, Mike right. The space was cavernous, once filled with machinery and workers, now eerily empty except for scattered debris and 3 startled figures. 2 men with military bearing reached for weapons. Diego fired twice, not to kill, but precise shots that disabled without being lethal. Shoulder, thigh. The men went down hard, screaming. The third figure was Amanda Hayes, still in her red gala dress, looking incongruously elegant in the decrepit surroundings. She made no move toward a weapon, just sighed as if this were all terribly inconvenient. "You're making a mistake, Reynolds. Foster has contingencies." Mike ignored her eyes, scanning the room until he found what he was seeking, a makeshift cage constructed from chain-link fencing in the far corner. Inside, Rachel sat with Lily curled against her, both looking frightened but unharmed. "Daddy!" Lily's cry cut through everything else, making the world right again. Mike ran to the cage, examined the padlock securing the door. One shot from Diego's gun, and it fell away. Lily flew into his arms, her small body shaking with sobs. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. You're safe now." Rachel emerged more slowly, her face bruised, clothes torn. "They came out of nowhere. Professional. We never had a chance. Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious," she glared at Amanda. "Unlike her, when I get my hands on her." Diego was securing the wounded men with zip ties, professional, despite the circumstances. "We need to move. If these guys miss a check-in, reinforcements could be coming." Mike turned to Amanda, who remained surprisingly composed for someone whose plan had just collapsed. "Foster's not getting his confession. Tell your boss the deal's off." "He's not my boss," Amanda replied coolly. "Just a temporary alliance of convenience." "Why money?" "Partly, mostly survival. Foster destroys people who cross him. I chose the winning side." "You chose wrong," Mike indicated the downed guards. "This is the losing side." Diego secured Amanda with the last zip tie. "Police will be here in 15 minutes. Anonymous tip about an abduction." "Won't matter," Amanda smiled, the expression chilling in its confidence. "Foster's lawyers will have me out in an hour. The guards will claim they were hired by you to stage this. It'll be your word against ours, and Foster owns half the judges in Colorado." Mike knelt to look her directly in the eyes. "You made one critical mistake tonight. You didn't threaten me or Sarah or even Rachel. You threatened my daughter. There's no coming back from that." He stood, lifting Lily into his arms, her face buried against his neck. "Let's go. We have a gala to finish." The return to the Denver Art Museum took half the time Diego's police lights clearing a path through late-night traffic. Mike used the drive to check in with Luis and Tommy, confirming that Foster was still in the director's office, growing increasingly agitated as his deadline approached, with no sign of Sarah's capitulation. Rachel took Lily to a safe location, a genuine one this time, with people Mike had personally vetted. He changed from his now rumpled tuxedo into the uniform of an event security guard, a courtesy of Maria's quick thinking. "Sarah's stalled as long as she can," Luis reported through the earpiece. "Foster's threatening to go public, expose her as a fraud. He still thinks he has Rachel and Lily as leverage." "Good, keep him thinking that." Mike adjusted his uniform cap, obscuring his features. "The thumb drive. Did she prepare it?" "Yes, but not with what Foster's expecting." "Perfect. Tommy, Diego, Maria, are you in position?" 3 affirmatives came through the comm. Mike entered the museum through the service entrance, blending with the actual security staff. The gala was still in full swing, though the crowd had thinned somewhat as the evening progressed. He spotted Sarah immediately, still in her blue gown, composed, but with tension visible in every line of her body. She was speaking with the museum director, an elderly man whose concern was evident even from a distance. Mike circled closer, catching fragments of their conversation. "Completely inappropriate. Mr. Foster has no authorization to use my office." "I understand, Dr. Keller. It's a sensitive business matter, won't take long." "Several complaints about his behavior tonight. If he's threatening you..." Sarah spotted Mike over the director's shoulder, relief flooding her features for just a moment before her professional mask reasserted itself. "Everything's under control. I'll handle Mr. Foster, thank you for your concern. She moved away from the director, casually retrieving her evening bag from a table. The thumb drive would be inside but not containing confessions and fabricated evidence. Instead, Luis had filled it with irrefutable proof of Foster's crimes, the same evidence now simultaneously being transmitted to the FBI, the SEC, and major news outlets. Mike positioned himself near the elevator, watching as Sarah entered and the doors closed behind her. The confrontation that would end this chapter of their lives was about to begin. "She's on her way up," he informed the team. "Everyone ready?" The next 10 minutes passed with excruciating slowness. Mike monitored the situation through updates from Tommy, who had managed to place a listening device near the director's office earlier in the evening. Foster's voice tense with controlled anger. "You're late." Sarah calm. "I had to be careful. People are watching." "The drive, give it to me. First proof that my family is unharmed." "Don't play games, Sarah. You're not in a position to make demands." "Neither are you, William. Not anymore." A pause, then Foster's voice suddenly uncertain. "What does that mean?" "It means your men at the warehouse have been arrested. Rachel and Lily are safe. And everything you've done is being transmitted to the authorities as we speak." "You're bluffing. Check your phone. The market moves fast when a CEO is about to be indicted for fraud, extortion, and kidnapping." Silence, then the sound of frantic typing. Foster's sharp intake of breath told Mike he was seeing the first reports already hitting financial news. Winters Technologies stock surging as Foster's various companies plummeted. "This is a temporary setback. I still have resources connections." "Not after tonight. The thumb drive contains it all, William. Every transaction, every bribe, every threat. Even that offshore account you thought was untraceable, the one in your wife's maiden name. Especially that one." Foster's voice turned venomous. "You think this is over? I've destroyed better people than you." "Maybe, but you've never faced anyone with better people behind them." Mike smiled at that, sharing a look with Tommy across the room. They weren't corporate titans or power brokers. They were just people who understood loyalty, who recognized the difference between right and wrong in a world of gray. The elevator doors opened, and Sarah emerged, her face set in lines of grim satisfaction. Behind her, the sound of shouting echoed from the third floor. "Foster," Mike asked quietly as she approached. "Currently being introduced to the FBI agents who've been waiting for my signal." Sarah looked tired but triumphant. "It's over. Really over." As if to punctuate her statement, Foster appeared at the top of the grand staircase, flanked by two agents in dark suits. The crowd below fell silent, conversations halting mid-sentence as Denver's elite witnessed the fall of one of their own. Phones appeared, recording the moment when William Foster, his face a mask of fury and disbelief, was escorted through the gala he'd arrived at as a king. As Foster passed Sarah, he paused, despite the agents urging him forward. "This isn't justice, this is personal." Sarah met his gaze unflinchingly. "It's both. You made it personal when you targeted a child." Foster's eyes found Mike recognition and hatred flaring. "The mechanic. I should have eliminated you from the beginning. You should have used your own car, saved yourself the trouble." Mike stepped closer, voice low enough that only Foster and Sarah could hear. "Prison's going to be rough for a man like you. All that power gone. All those people you stepped on to get to the top. They'll be waiting when you get out, if you get out." Foster lunged forward despite his restraints, raw fury replacing calculation. The agents pulled him back, tightening their grip as they continued their path through the stunned crowd. Sarah watched until Foster disappeared through the main doors, then turned to Mike. "Lily, safe, with Rachel at the fallback location. I spoke to her 10 minutes ago." The tension visibly drained from Sarah's shoulders. "I need to see her." "Soon. We need to finish this properly first." Mike nodded toward the assembled guests, many of whom were looking to Sarah for explanation. "They need to see you strong, victorious." Sarah straightened, the CEO persona sliding back into place like armor. "You're right, one final act." She moved to the center of the grand hall, her blue gown catching the light as all eyes turned to her. Without preamble or microphone, she began to speak, her voice carrying through the suddenly silent space. "As some of you have witnessed, William Foster has just been taken into custody for crimes including fraud, embezzlement, extortion, and kidnapping. These charges result from a thorough investigation that uncovered decades of corruption at the highest levels of Denver's business community. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah continued, her voice strengthening. Winters Technologies remains committed to innovation, ethical business practices, and this community. The actions of one man or several men will not define us. Moving forward, we will be more transparent, more accountable, and more determined than ever to rebuild the trust that has been damaged. She paused, surveying the room. Many faces showed shock or discomfort. Others, particularly the younger business leaders, displayed something closer to admiration. Tonight was meant to raise funds for arts education in underserved communities. Despite these dramatic events, let's not forget why we're here. I am personally doubling my company's contribution, and I challenge everyone in this room to dig deeper as well. Now more than ever, we need to demonstrate what real leadership and community commitment look like. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then growing. Sarah had transformed a scandal into a rallying cry, a moment of shame into an opportunity for redemption. Mike watched from the periphery, pride swelling in his chest. This was the woman he'd first glimpsed beneath the terror and exhaustion, brilliant, resilient, unstoppable. The gala resumed its normal rhythm, though, with an electric undercurrent of gossip and speculation. Sarah circulated gracefully, accepting congratulations and fielding questions with diplomatic skill. Mike remained in the background, coordinating with the team as they ensured all loose ends were secured. Amanda Hayes and Foster's hired muscle were in custody. The evidence against Foster was overwhelming, his financial empire already crumbling as markets reacted to the news. Rachel and Lily were safe, the threat eliminated. As the event wound down, Mike received a text from Rachel. All quiet here. Lily finally asleep. Says her daddy is better than any superhero. The simple message brought a lump to his throat. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a mechanic struggling to make ends meet, a father trying to give his daughter stability in an unstable world. Now he'd helped bring down a corrupt billionaire, saved a major company, and found, what exactly, partnership purpose? Something more. Sarah found him as the last guests were leaving, her public face giving way to exhaustion. Can we go now? I need to see Lily, make sure she's really okay. Of course. They slipped out a side entrance where Tommy waited with a car. The drive to the safe house was quiet, both of them processing the events of the past hours, days, weeks. When they arrived, Rachel met them at the door, her relief evident. She's asleep in the back bedroom. Been asking for both of you. Both. The word lingered between Mike and Sarah as they moved silently to the bedroom door. Inside, Lily was curled under a quilt, her dinosaur clutched tight against her chest. In sleep, she looked younger, more vulnerable, all the precociousness and bravery stripped away to reveal just a little girl who deserved a world better than the one that had nearly shattered around her. Sarah touched Mike's arm gently. I'll give you some time with her. Stay, Mike whispered. She'll want to see you when she wakes up. They sat together on the edge of the bed, watching Lily sleep. After everything, the danger, the confrontations, the high-stakes maneuvering, this quiet moment felt more significant than any victory. What happens now? Sarah asked softly. Mike considered the question. The immediate threat was gone, but the aftermath would be complicated investigations, trials, rebuilding. You go back to running your company. I go back to fixing cars. Lily goes back to school and dinosaurs. Is it really that simple? No, nothing about this has been simple. Mike looked at her directly. The training center offer, is it still on the table? Of course, more than ever. Then that's what happens next. I build something that's mine, something that matters, something Lily can be proud of. Sarah's hand found his in the dim light. And us, is there an us in this future? Mike looked at their joined hands, then at Lily, then back at Sarah. 3 weeks ago, their worlds couldn't have been further apart. Now he couldn't imagine one without the other. I think there has to be, for her sake, for ours. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, the weight of her both unfamiliar and exactly right. Good, because I'm not letting either of you go. Not after everything. Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, confusion clouded her face, then recognition and joy. Daddy, Sarah, you both came. We both came, Mike confirmed, gathering his daughter into his arms. And we're not going anywhere. Lily looked between them, her 9-year-old wisdom seeing more than they might have expected. Are we a family now? Like Tommy at school with his dim and his dad's girlfriend, Mike met Sarah's eyes over Lily's head, saw his own question reflected there. Were they? Could they be? Sarah smiled, the expression transforming her tired face. We're something even better. We're people who chose each other, who fought for each other. Like a dinosaur pack, Lily said seriously. Velociraptors stayed together to survive. Exactly like that. Mike agreed, his heart fuller than he could remember it being since before Caroline got sick. A pack. Together. Outside, dawn was breaking over Denver, painting the sky in shades of promise. Whatever came next, rebuilding justice, new beginnings. They would face it as what they had become, not just survivors, but a family forged in fire, stronger, for having been tested unbreakable in the ways that mattered most.